What's up, YouTube? This is your boy John from the Jersey Shore, and I am back with you today to give you my review of the 1984 classic, A Nightmare on Elm Street. If you're already subscribed to my channel, welcome back. It's good to see you again. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, what on earth are you doing? Go ahead and click that subscribe button right now and get that out of the way. A Nightmare on Elm Street was written and directed by the late great Wes Craven, starring Heather Langenkamp, John Saxon, a very young Johnny Depp in his very first role, and Robert Englund as the notorious Freddie Kruger. This hat is too small for my head. Oh my God. So this movie starts off with four friends expressing or talking about having nightmares as of late. And they come to discover that in those nightmares, the same guy is trying to kill each one of them in this nightmare. And this guy's got on a red and green dirty sweater. His face, he looks like he's been all burned up. He's got a dirty ass hat and he's got knives for fingers. So one night, Rod and Tina escaped away to Tina's mother's bedroom to spend some quality time together. And when all that's over, they're asleep. And while they're asleep, Tina is attacked in her dream. Rod wakes up and pulls the covers away, and you see Tina's chest get ripped open. 4 straight marks that look like the way he describes it was that she was attacked with 4 razors at once. She gets pulled out of the bed. She goes up against the wall, pulled up to the ceiling, pulled across the ceiling, and you just see her getting cut up the whole time. She drops down on the bed, falls on the floor, there's blood all over the place, and Tina's now dead with Rod sitting in the corner. By the time Nancy and Glenn get into the room, Rod has already jumped out the window and made a break for it. So the next day, Nancy's on her way walking to school, and somebody jumps out of the bushes and grabs her. When she turns around, it's Rod. Rod is there, and he's telling her that he's not going to hurt her, that there was somebody else in the room. He did not do this to Tina. He didn't lay a hand on her. There was somebody else there. Unfortunately, he can't describe who was there because he couldn't see them. This was happening in Tina's dream, so therefore Rod could not see who it was that was tearing her apart. So then Nancy's dad shows up. He's a cop, by the way. He shows up, chases Rod out into the street. A bunch of cops surround him. They arrest him and they bring him to jail. While Rod's in jail, he falls asleep, and the sheet wraps around his neck and actually hangs him in the jail cell. Needless to say, by this time, Nancy's a complete wreck. They show her sitting in school one day, and her teacher is actually the woman who's in all the Insidious movies. Anyway, she's sitting in school and she falls asleep. While she is asleep, she starts having nightmares again, and she looks over in the hallway of the school, and she sees Tina in a body bag talking to her. The next thing she sees is Tina being drugged down the hallway in a body bag, leaving a trail of blood. So for the next few scenes in the movie, for the next several scenes in the movie, you see Freddie Kruger almost getting Nancy, almost but not quite. She keeps either getting woke up or she keeps barely escaping him. Before too long, you see Nancy lying in a hospital bed. They're running tests on her. They're doing like some sort of sleep test or sleep study just to see if she's all right. And she once again is attacked by Freddie Kruger. And when she gets attacked this time, she grabs a hold of him. When she is awoken, she actually pulls his hat into reality. She's got his hat under the blankets with her. The mother is asking her, "Where did you get this filthy hat?" so on and so forth. And a little while later, you see Nancy standing in her kitchen with her mother talking about this hat. And that's when Nancy tells her mother that there's a tag inside of that hat that says Fred Krueger. And the mother tells Nancy it can't be Fred Krueger because Fred Krueger's dead. Come to find out, Fred Krueger was actually a child murderer years before. And Nancy's parents, Rod's parents, Tina's parents, and Glenn's parents were partially responsible for Fred Krueger being killed. They burned him up in a warehouse. Or was it a boiler room? Or was it the boiler room of the warehouse? Anyway, Nancy and her friends, all of their parents are the ones who killed Freddy Krueger. So ultimately, long story short, Freddy Krueger has targeted these 4 teenagers because their parents are the ones that were responsible for killing him. My boy is avenging his own death. I would absolutely say that this is Wes Craven's most famous movie. I don't know that it's his best movie, but it certainly is his most famous movie. This is the movie that Freddy Krueger became a pop culture icon. They made 6 or 7 or 8 more movies out after this, none of which, in my opinion, were nearly as good as this one was. But this definitely was the highlight of Wes Craven's career. This was Johnny Depp's first movie role ever. This movie gave Robert Englund a career. This guy didn't need to do anything else ever for the rest of his life after playing Freddy Krueger in all these movies. And I don't know if you would consider that a blessing or a curse, because he will now and will always forever be known as Freddy Krueger. I would go as far as to say that I would almost guarantee more people know him as Freddy Krueger than know him as actually Robert Englund. I've actually seen Robert Englund at a couple horror movie conventions, and I didn't meet him because he was charging way too much for an autograph. It was like $50 for an autograph or $50 for a picture, and it was one or the other. It wasn't $50 for both. At that time, which was several years ago, that may be typical now. I don't know. I haven't been to one in a while. But back then, it was typical to charge like $20, and you would be able to take a picture with the actor. You would get an autograph of the actor or from the actor, and you would be able to sit there and just have a little bit of a conversation, a little bit of banter with them. This guy wanted $50 for an autograph or $50 for a picture. It wasn't both. And for me, that was just way too much money. But I was sitting in the same room with him. My wife wanted to meet someone else who was not charging $50 for an autograph. And I was just listening to Robert Englund talk to his fans and communicate with his fans. And he seemed like a genuinely cool guy. He was doing the Freddy Krueger voice, and he had a claw with him. And it was really nice to see that he liked his fans as much as he did, or loved his fans, I should say. Was not currently, in a position at that time to drop $50 for an autograph. And I just think that Robert Englund was absolutely born to be Freddy Krueger. I couldn't imagine anybody else actually playing that role. They did a remake of Nightmare on Elm Street many, many years after the first one, the original, came out. And it was good, but it was very strange to see someone else portraying Freddy Krueger that was not Robert Englund. I thought the effects in this movie were really cool. They were obviously they were practical effects. There was a ton. There were boatloads of blood in this movie. It was really good. The one effect in this movie that I thought was kind of hokey, that I wasn't nuts about, was there's one scene when Tina sees him for the first time in the movie, and he's walking down an alley, and if you've seen this movie, I'm sure you remember this, and I'm assuming most of you have seen this movie. He extends his arms out and he's scratching the side of a shed. And when he sticks his arms out, it just looks gangly and silly, in my opinion. And there's another scene in the movie where he gets his face ripped off and you can see a skeleton underneath of it. That was also kind of hokey. But I mean, that was cool. That's part of what you embrace in the movies back in 1984. Even the cheesy extended arm thing, that it just worked. And I also would say that the murder of Tina in this movie, where she's torn apart in her dream and Rod's in the room with her, and she's dragged across the ceiling, the entire room is completely covered in blood. The effects when they cut open her chest were pretty good, especially considering it was 1984. That kill was definitely my favorite kill in this movie. And I would think that it's probably safe to say that was probably my favorite kill of the entire franchise. I saw this movie in 1984 when it came out in the Penn Twin Theater in Pennsville, New Jersey with my cousin. I was 13 years old, and I remember sitting in this movie theater completely freaked out. After Tina's death, when Nancy saw Tina sitting in the hallway in the body bag, this is the only time that I ever did this, and it's almost embarrassing to admit it. When I saw that scene, I literally stood up and walked right out of the movie theater. That completely caught me off guard and completely scared me to death. However, Almost immediately after I was out of that movie theater, I regretted walking out of that. I immediately wanted to know what happened. I immediately, like I said, regretted making that choice to get up and leave. And I think that this movie and that scene in particular had a whole lot to doing with where I am today, the horror movie fan that I am today. I think that Nightmare on Elm Street was definitely a catalyst in me becoming the nut about this stuff that I am now. I saw quite a few horror movies before I saw this one, and I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of horror movies since I saw this one. There are countless horror movies out there that I like more than this one, but I would be lying if I were to try and say that this movie didn't have a whole lot to do with shaping me into the horror fanatic that I've become. So on a personal note, there are not very many horror movies out there that mean more to me than A Nightmare on Elm Street. Alright folks, well that's going to do it for my review of Nightmare on Elm Street. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you really like this video, please subscribe to my channel. I would love for you to go on this journey with me. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, have a kick-ass day, and thank you for watching.